Hello everybody and welcome back to another not applicable Formula 1 video. The 2023 Red Bull car has dropped. That's not it, is it? That's not it, is it? The 2023 that's not it either. That's not the Red Bull car either. Oh god. The 2023 Red Bull car has finally dropped. I think it's that one. Is it that one? They all look the same. They all look exactly the same, but we're not here to talk about liveries. We're here to talk about Red Bull, and we're here to talk about their season. And also, a little bit of extra news that they just kind of dropped in on us is that Red Bull and Ford will be partnering up from 2026 as part of the Red Bull Ford powertrains. But we'll talk about that in a second, because first off, let's talk about Red Bull in 2023. We joined Red Bull live in New York for the RB19 reveal. They revealed their new livery for the 2023 season. It was the same, but it was nice to see the team back together again. And of course, if you're a big Max Verstappen fan, there was a lot of montages of Max Verstappen winning various things over the last couple of seasons. He was, of course, joined by Sergio Perez and third driver Daniel Ricciardo. It was nice to see Daniel Ricciardo kind of involved and still in and around the Formula 1 circuit. Hopefully, he'll be able to get himself a full-time seat sometime soon. Christian Horner, of course, was there as well as the team principal. He was kind of more concerned about talking about America and, of course, Ford. He said it was incredibly special to be in the Big Apple in the US, in New York. The US plays a massive role in Formula 1 these days. 3 Grand Prix with Las Vegas coming to the calendar as well, alongside Miami that we had last year for the first time, and of course Austin, the home of Formula 1 in the US, if you ask me. And I think they're starting to try and build a little bit more of a relation with the American audience in Formula 1. I know that we've got Haas as a sort of American Formula 1 team-ish. We've got Andretti possibly trying to come in, but I think Red Bull are trying to be that kind of surrogate American Formula 1 team. I think they were going to try and fill that market as much as they possibly can. And then Horner continued to say it's going to be an incredible season. Our rivals for sure haven't stood still. We're expecting Ferrari to be competitive. Mercedes are going to be there. And then he talked about just building up. Obviously, the car itself, as I touched upon, it's more of a livery. The car itself is going to change quite a bit over the next couple of months. And what we get now compared to what we get in Bahrain in March is going to be completely different. And we'll see what everybody else's cars are like. And we'll realize we've either missed something or we've not. But they're about to set off on 23 race journey between March and November. There's going to be highs and lows. I'm going into a good place, carrying the momentum from last year. And I think that's the big thing from Christian Horner there. Red Bull can't really do anything better than they did last year, and therefore it is about just carrying that momentum forward for me, because Red Bull just had their best season in about a decade. You know, we're looking at 2013 Sebastian Vettel days as the previous time Red Bull were really this good. You're looking at Max Verstappen, who came top of the Drivers' Championship in 2021, yes, but 2022 was just a completely different level, right? It was Max Verstappen top of the Drivers' Championship, but also the Red Bull team joining them at the top of the Constructors' Championship, and by a considerable margin as well. Ferrari and Mercedes were battling it out for second place. Nobody was even looking at Red Bull towards the end of the season. They were by far and away clear of just everybody else, which means they also had to keep the same driver pairing, right? Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez. There was nothing they could do to change that. Max Verstappen's absolutely phenomenal, and Sergio Perez has done everything he needed to. Obviously got that contract in Monaco, ensuring that he was going to be part of the Red Bull team in the future. So let's delve into those two as well. Starting with the main man, Max Verstappen, who was absolutely electric in 2022. 15 race victories in 22 Grand Prix is just phenomenal. Obviously a record, and a record that will be held, I think, for a little while. This season, Max Verstappen aims to become only the 5th driver in Formula 1 history to win 3 Drivers' Championships on the bounce with Red Bull. And I think, you know, if you're a betting man, you can't really bet against him. He has been so quick, and he's won 2 championships in 2 very different ways. You're looking at the Lewis Hamilton battle that he had in 2021. He had to be there. He was continually just having to dig out and battle with Lewis every single Grand Prix. And then you look at 2022, and it became a little bit different. The pressure was different. He was expected to win every single Grand Prix. He was expected to win every single Grand Prix and make it look easy. And if anything, he made it look easier and easier the more and more pressure that was put on him. He was absolutely brilliant, in my opinion. I thought it was quite funny that during this whole like livery season, Formula 1 car season, where every single Formula 1 fan is trying to get any piece of information about the cars, Max Verstappen, who literally could just walk up to the Red Bull guys and be like, show me the car next year, hasn't seen it. He's spoken to them about performance upgrades in terms of the lap time of the car, but hasn't seen any pictures or renders. He said, I'm not interested in these kind of things. I only want a fast car, and it doesn't matter how it looks to me. I think that is just so Max Verstappen, isn't it? It's just so winner's mentality from him. But I also thought it was interesting that they touched upon, obviously, even though he's got 15 wins, even though he got 454 points last season, a record in terms of the number of points accrued in a singular season, he thinks that Mercedes might be quite a tricky challenge. He said, I think even at the end of the year, it looked like sometimes they, meaning Mercedes, had it together and sometimes not. So from my side, it's difficult to say because I'm not part of the team, but I guess we'll find out this year. I fully understand everything they wanted to improve on the car. Of course, they will be our main rival. And then I think he kind of backtracked a little bit. He was like, oh, and I have to mention Ferrari too. And he was like, but I think Ferrari would be strong as well. But how strong, it's difficult to say. Mercedes have shown over the course of the last few years been really, really strong, but they're a good group of people as well. I trust in Milton Keynes. They can build us a very strong car together with an engine as well. I hope that we, again, will have a strong package against them. So he kind of touched on Mercedes as being more of their main rival going into 2023, and then possibly thinking that Ferrari might be the third fastest car this season. I think that's an interesting take from Max Verstappen. Obviously, he's always going to have more belief in the Red Bull setup and more belief in himself, but the fact that he mentioned Mercedes there, but I think he's maybe still a little bit more scared of Mercedes than he is from Ferrari. Obviously, you look at the 2021 title challenge versus the 2022 title challenge. 2021 was a lot more difficult for Max Verstappen, and that was Mercedes putting up the fight, whereas 2022, it looked like Charles Leclerc was going to put up the fight, and Ferrari kind of dropped off. So I think I can see where Max Verstappen is coming from. Then there's teammate Sergio Perez, who's hoping to put in a title bid of his own in 2023. I think if you look at it on paper, obviously, looking at the driver's standings from last season, Max Verstappen, 454 points, right at the top there. Sergio Perez, only 305, didn't even come second in the Drivers' Championship last year when the Red Bull car just looked absolutely phenomenal for the second half of the season. But Sergio Perez, I think, did improve. Even though he didn't come second place, I think it was an improvement from him from 2021 to 2022. Looked just more comfortable in that Red Bull car. And obviously, Red Bull for 3 years now, I'm expecting another big step up. We usually see kind of that 3-year period. If you're in a team for 3 years, that third year seems to be that step up period. And I think we're going to see that from Sergio Perez this year. Not only that, but the relationship between Sergio Perez and the Dutch side of the garage is probably a little bit stretched after the 2022 season. None of us have forgotten what happened in Brazil, and Checo probably hasn't forgotten what happened in Brazil either. So I can see him being a little bit less helpful to Max Verstappen in 2023, and therefore I think it's fair to say the Mexican Minister of Defense is going to be on the attack in 2023. But in terms of the team, obviously they've just got to stay still. They're top of the Drivers' Championship already, they're top of the Constructors' Championship already. There's not anywhere else for Red Bull to go right now in terms of Formula One. They've just got to try and keep that momentum going for the 2023 campaign, which will be tricky. They're going to have a target on their back. Everybody is going to be aiming for the Red Bull car. They've already talked about how many of the teams are just going to have Red Bull copies coming into the 2023 season, and we're yet to see because we've just seen liveries from the two teams that have released their cars. But Red Bull, with that expectation comes a lot of pressure as well. And I think Max Verstappen, this is going to be a real season that defines Max Verstappen for me. That third championship, is he going to be able to go back to back to back? And also Red Bull, now that you finally usurped Mercedes in terms of the Constructors' Championship, can they keep that rhythm going? Can you win a back-to-back Constructors' Championship? That would be very, very impressive. One thing also that I would like from Red Bull is just for them to keep themselves out of the news for a little while. Obviously, it was all positive, Max Verstappen winning championships last season, but in the news, it felt like we were always talking about the negatives of Red Bull. It was Max Verstappen fighting Sky. It was Max Verstappen fighting Sergio Perez. It was Red Bull breaking cost cap regulations or having fights with the FIA. It constantly felt like Red Bull were being talked about, and it never really felt overly positive. So I'd like a 2023 season where we can see the positive side of Red Bull. Maybe Daniel Ricciardo coming back into the team. It'll be all smiles. We can see Daniel Ricciardo do some videos. We can see Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen win some Grand Prix. And Red Bull can just be like this non-villainous character for a season or so. That would be quite nice. Finally, probably the biggest story to actually come out of this livery launch is that Red Bull and Ford will be partnering up in Formula One very, very soon. Ford announced a new technical partnership with Red Bull for the 2026 season and beyond. Obviously, we knew that Audi were coming in for the 2026 season to take over Sauber, Sauber, but now this is Ford also coming in to partner alongside Red Bull powertrain. So this isn't Ford taking over the Red Bull team in the way that Audi are kind of having a bigger stakehold on the Sauber partnership. I think that Ford are just going to come in and kind of be part of Red Bull powertrains ahead of the new sporting engine regulations coming into play. Obviously, Ford have been around Formula One before. They've been probably out of the sport for about 20 years now, is it? Michael Schumacher back in 1994 was the last time that Ford were really at the pinnacle of Formula One. But starting in 2023, Ford and Red Bull powertrains will be in development of a next-gen power unit to supply both Red Bull and, of course, AlphaTauri. Honestly, there might be more teams that come in and want a Red Bull powertrain. Obviously, the Mercedes powertrain was the one of the previous generation. We've still got 4 teams on the grid right now that use Mercedes powertrains. I don't know whether Red Bull would want to or Ford would want to, but I think there could be other teams that come in and maybe try out a Red Bull powertrain over the next couple of generations or so, because they could be looking to make that step up and be the powertrain of the next generation. I suppose it's just down to Red Bull and whether or not they want to supply to other teams, because Christian Horner did add, it's fantastic to be welcoming Ford back into the world of Formula One through this partnership. As an independent engine manufacturer, to have the ability to benefit from an OEM's experience like Ford puts us in great stead against the competition. So maybe they don't want to supply engines to other teams if they have so much faith in this engine being the best engine on the grid, right? As they are a manufacturer rich in motorsporting history that spans generations, Jim Clark, Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher, the lineage speaks for itself. So if they've got a lot of faith in this Red Bull powertrain, Red Bull Ford coming forward in the future, even though 2026 is a long time away, I think this could be an absolutely incredible partnership with Red Bull moving forward. If they and Ford can make it work for 2026 and they can really get that Red Bull powertrain ticking, I think they could be untouchable for a little while now. We could be looking at another dynasty like the Mercedes dynasty that we've just come out of. We could be looking at a Red Bull dynasty where Red Bull and Ford absolutely dominate Formula One for a little while if they get it right. That's all my thoughts and feelings and various bits and pieces that I thought about whilst watching the Red Bull live stream. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Obviously, the Red Bull livery, it's a little bit annoying that it's exactly the same, but what are we thinking about Red Bull for 2023? Can they do anything to actually improve upon one of the best seasons that we've seen from a team in Formula One in 2022? Do you think that the Red Bull testing, obviously the wind tunnel time, is going to affect them in any way whatsoever? I'm not so sure, to be honest with you. But as I said, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Whilst you're down there, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you next time.